hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDR's, but hey, it's something. Now, you may have noticed that that video I posted like a little bit ago. And yes, we're doing another Q&A episode. It'll be coming soon, my friends. Feel free to post a question on that video, this video. If you're gonna post on this video, I at least recommend putting the word question in it so that I know it's a question for the episode. Maybe I'll pin like the episode to my channel just so like people are more inclined to go to that one. But anyways, with that out of the way, let's get right into the news. First, coming from Vladimir Putin, because a lot of people were going really crazy about things that happened in the Ukraine-Russia war that's been going on. Because basically what happened is like Biden basically gave like a little shorthand like okay for Volodymyr Zelensky to attack Russia and do something. And people are like, oh no, if Zelensky does this, then World War III is going to happen. It's like, when it's literally like the meme of like Miss Fowl where she's like, Sheen, this is the 5th time that you've said World War III in like 5 months. Because, yeah, it's like, I mean, the only thing I'll say that is very interesting and like notable is this thing. Because Putin has lowered the threshold for using his nuclear arsenal after Biden's armed decision on Ukraine. President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday formally lowered the threshold for Russia to use its nuclear weapons, a move that follows U.S. President Joe Biden's decision to let Ukraine strike targets in Russian territory with American-supplied longer-range missiles. The new doctrine allows for a potential nuclear response by Moscow, even to a conventional attack on Russia by any nation that is supported by a nuclear power. Russia's defense ministry says Ukraine fired 6 U.S.-made ATA-CMS missiles early Tuesday at a military facility in Russia. This is the thing. This isn't gonna happen. Like a lot of people, are, they're a little like there's some people who are afraid. Like, oh no, this is gonna happen. It's like, guys, remember, Putin bought off the U.S. government. That's gonna be coming into office in a couple of months. He's not going to strike them now. He's gonna strike us now, right before the Trump administration comes in. He's not gonna do that. That's stupid. But this is more of a concern in literally every other aspect because he's literally just saying like, yeah, now nobody can hurt me because I might launch nukes. That's his threat. That's his one threat. Like, I will launch nukes. It's the threat that he's been saying the entirety of the Ukraine war, and it's the threat that he's going to keep using until he's either pushed to actually doing it, or they inevitably get rid of him. And now, due to the fact that Putin, like, when inevitably because a lot of people are basically counting down at this point, like, when will Ukraine fall? And it's like, yeah, after that, he'll literally just be able to do whatever the fuck he wants now, under the threat of nuclear proliferation. And yeah, I mean, I'm sorry guys, but Russia won. It seems that Russia's winning. The U.S. lost. Russia won. Russia's controlling us right now, guys. You gotta understand. Doomer mode on that front. If you're literally one of those like Cold War guys of like the modern, like, oh, there's a modern day Cold War. It's like, guys, if that's the case, then I got bad news for you. America won the first Cold War. Russia's winning this one. We're 1 for 1. Now it's time for Cold War 3. Let's go. We're getting a 3rd Cold War before we get any 3rd World War. Maybe if Zelensky sucks Trump's cock hard enough, maybe he'll be able to get, like, the ability to, like, remain president of whatever remains of Ukraine. But otherwise, yeah, I'll just be real, guys. You guys are fucked. If you're, like, pro, like, Ukraine NATO guys, and sticks for you guys are fucked. Speaking of people that are fucked, Bolsonaro is going to be fucked soon in prison because, as it turns out, like, since Brazil is, again, not a stupid country, and not a brain-dead country, or anything remotely stupid like the United States, Bolsonaro is actually being tried for the coup attempt that he tried to do in 2022. You guys remember that? Like, when Donald Trump tried to overthrow the U.S. government, and then Bolsonaro literally copied him beat for beat? And then he tried to overthrow the Brazilian government, and due to the fact that the incumbent administration wasn't a pro-right-wing government, that meant that Lula didn't get overthrown. Meanwhile, if a right-wing government, like say, I don't know, if there was like some orange pedophile that was running for president, was president at the time period, then Lula definitely would have been literally murdered, because this is literally what the plan was. The plan was literally to murder Lula, Geraldo Alckmin, and all the members of the government, and instill Bolsonaro as a military dictator Remember that, guys. Remember that, guys. Remember that, guys. And you guys are like, we can't vote for Kamala. It's like, I hate you. I hate all of you. Like, all of you. Like, I mean, I'll just be real. I'm still mad at you guys. I'm still fucking mad at you guys. I'm like, I don't care if you guys are like, but it's been a couple of days after the election. Can you get over it? No, shut up. I hate you. I hate all of you. If you did not vote for Kamala Harris, then I hate you. I hate you. I genuinely hate you. Because you guys know what you're going to do, right? All of these left... Guys, my entire personality on this site is pink-tied now. That's my personality. That pink-tide is donezo. Every left-wing government that is elected in Latin America now is going to be overthrown by the Trump administration. Remember, Trump is the one who tried to overthrow Maduro. It was through legitimization of the Trump administration that Bolsonaro got elected in the first place. He put sanctions on Nicaragua to try and hurt their incumbent administration. And right-wing governments in Latin America use Trump as like a cornerstone, a stepping stone of their politics. Javier Milei, fucking like Nayib Bukele, they all love like Bolsonaro. They all love Trump, even though they all like claim to be like different aspects of like that kind of like right-wing politics down there. They all love Trump. Their governments get legitimized under these administrations. Meanwhile, the left-wing ones will get delegitimized extensively. Every single Latin American coup that happens during the Trump administration, I am blaming it all on you. Everyone who did not vote for Kamala Harris, I'm blaming it directly on you. And I know it's going to happen. A lot of you guys are going to pretend like you care about this stuff, even though you don't care about this stuff. I know there's a certain one of you that's going to comment and be like, no, I care about this. No, you don't. I'm subtweeting you specifically. You know who you are. You know who the fuck you are. I hope your virtue signaling about the fucking bullshit Green Party or whatever was worth it, guys. In before you guys go, but Jill Stein didn't do well. Yes, I know Jill Stein didn't do well. It's irrelevant. I'm not talking about whether or not Jill Stein did well. Guys, because here's the thing. I know what. Listen to this, guys. If every single person who voted for Jill Stein or Cornel West voted for Kamala Harris would have still lost. Kamala Harris still sucks and she's a stupid cunt. I know this. This is a fact. Doesn't mean I still can't hate Jill Stein voters. Doesn't mean I still can't hate Cornel West voters. Doesn't mean I still can't hate Trump voters. Doesn't mean I still can't hate Randall Terry voters. Everybody who did not vote for Kamala Harris is wrong. Fact. There are people who voted for Kamala Harris that are wrong. The only people who are right are the people who voted for Kamala Harris, like me. The ones who specifically did it for me. The ones who did it specifically on my ideological framework of just preventing Trump getting another term and ultimately seeing that it would be beneficial for a lot of people over the lines. One of the things we're gonna learn a little bit about in this episode, but again, just remember. Although I mentioned Nicaragua in this episode, but you know, this is a new story about Nicaragua. But here's a fun factoid for those who don't know. I don't like Nicaragua at all. I know I talked about like him destabilizing Nicaragua as like an example of like Trump destabilizing left-wing governments, but I only use that as an example. I don't really like Nicaragua's government at all. And I'm about to show you guys why I don't like Daniel Ortega's regime. If you want a massive TLDR, Daniel Ortega is an authoritarian reactionary despot who has literally been taking over the entirety of Nicaragua with an iron fist. He has quelled student protests who are protesting against his regime, claimed that they were a coup created by the United States, jails and deports all of his opposition candidates so that there's literally no way anybody else can win, doesn't invite anybody from foreign, like people who are like election integrity people. He doesn't invite them to do like analyze his elections. He invites podcasters and has elections that are very obviously rigged, like so obviously rigged. Like guys, I'll be real. You know how like I mean, I don't want to be that guy. Guys, you just gotta understand. There are some numbers that just do not seem right. Remember, in a time period where Daniel Ortega was facing protests every day, he somehow walked away with 75% of the vote, with his largest opponent getting 14% of the vote. Interesting. Interesting. Here are all of the major provisions of these upcoming amendments. All right, listen. So first, the one that first caught headlines was the fact that he wants to make his wife, who is currently serving as vice president, officially his co-president. Him and her have effectively called themselves co-presidents for a while now, but this would eventually solidify that he and her are co-presidents, which is a bit more of a consolidation of power in the Ortega family, which was levied when he first initially had her serve as his vice president, which is now, of course, seemingly trying to become more of a big thing. Also, he wants to make it so that the president's term is extended to 6 years, meaning that Ortega and Murillo would extend their term up to 2028, wants to use the powers of the presidency to monitor and audit media, NGOs, and religious organizations that fall under quote-unquote external influence or spread fake news, which is a thing that is usually levied towards every single person who is critical of Daniel Ortega, would label every single person in Nicaragua who was a prominent critic of Daniel Ortega as traitors, who could potentially lose their citizenship and get deported. But the biggest red flag of them all, he wants to change the law to make it so that he is now considered the coordinator of the legislative, judicial, and electoral branches. Meaning, rather than them being considered separate rings of the government, he wants them to be directly controlled by him. And he wants to make it so that every single elected official who is deemed not abiding by this amendment would be removed from office. Quite literally, Daniel Ortega wants to turn Nicaragua into a dictatorship. Like, this is just blatant, openly blatant. Honestly, what else is there to say? I guess there is one thing I could say. Remember the episode that, I guess I can spoil it, doesn't really matter. Remember the episode that I kept teasing about where I ranked the Pink Tide leaders? Yeah, it's pretty obvious. Daniel Ortega is last. Like, wow, shocker. Speaking of shocker, the United States Congress loves Israel. Wow, what a concept. Alright, so 4 bills came into the United States Congress, and they did a lot of, actually there were a couple of bills that happened. I love that the lame duck session of the Biden administration is literally just, let's do more Israel stuff. Because we need to give like one final kiss to Bibi's finger before we leave office. There was like one bill that was like they changed the dictionary definition of anti-Semitism to include anti-Zionism. It passed, shocker. There was a bill that banned it banned quote-unquote giving money to terrorist organizations through NGOs, which basically is just a target to anybody who supports Palestine, and shock of all shocks, Democrats voted for the bill. What a concept. Basically all the ones who did it were Zionist cocksuckers who we were all supposed to be cheering for in the last election. Remember Colin Allred, where everyone's like, we need Colin Allred to win. Yeah, he voted for it. What a concept. You probably read about it on the Twitter or news or whatever, but it's a bill that literally makes it so that the government can target NGOs that are considered subversive or like target and quote-unquote support terrorists, which means quote-unquote supporting anything Arabic. And Democrats are just like, yes, let's vote to give this power right immediately before the guy we literally said is going to be a dictator and try to hurt people who are his political opponents before we give him the power. Because these guys are fucking stupid. But of course, the biggest thing that came out was the fact when someone actually tried to do something actually substantive. When Bernie Sanders decided to introduce 3 bills to the United States Senate that would specifically target 3 things that were going on to Israel, like to basically halt the last aid of Israel in the immediate precursor to the Trump administration. Shock of all shocks, they were rejected overwhelmingly. The first one was rejected 79 to 18, 78 to 19, 80 to 17. Now, there are some people who were wondering why are there discrepancies? Why wasn't it just kind of unilaterally for all of them? Well, the answer is actually pretty obvious. If you read the bills, it just kind of becomes obvious. The first bill says as follows: the sales of the following defense articles and services described in substance basically, here's what it was going to sell. The first one was going to sell 32,739 120 millimeter tank cartridges consisting of 120 millimeter blah blah explosives. Senate Resolution 113 would give 50,400 high explosive mortar charges. Meanwhile, the last one says that it would basically deal exclusively with defense articles, defense services, technical data to support procurement of Boeing direct attack weapons, joint direct attack munition variants, small diameter bomb increment, 1 variants. Basically, it really just, I'll include the comparison to the 3 bills in the description, but basically, the first 2 bills were very obviously offensive weaponry. Meanwhile, the last bill is specifically defensive and seemingly not weapon related, more of just like defense intelligence. Meanwhile, the other two, again, are offensive weaponry, but used in the defensive way. But clearly, the 113, it had the most weapons to give, so clearly there was like, maybe the couple of senators were just like, maybe this is just a bit overkill. But the other one is like, yeah, we can kind of see why you would do this. The one thing that a lot of people have been saying that has been a bit weird is that Tammy Baldwin voted present on all three bills. Not surprising. Honestly, I don't really see why people are surprised. Honestly, could have seen her voting for all three of them, but I guess I could also hypothetically see her voting against them. But really, like I said with president votes in the past, like, president votes are essentially when a member of Congress just wants to brush their hand clean of the affair. Like, they're afraid that either way they vote on the bill, they're going to get shit. So basically, Tammy Baldwin fears either that she wants to not give them the weapons, but she's afraid that if she doesn't give them the weapons, then maybe she might lose power. Or she's afraid because she's like somewhat seen as a progressive icon that if she votes for it, that she's going to get shit for that. So she's just like, I'm just going to wash my hand clean of the affair and be done with it. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the 2025 DNC chair election. Because there's going to be a DNC chair election that's going to be held no later than March 1st of 2025. Maybe I'll make an entire podcast about it as the race goes on. But right now, things are very, very, like, it's starting to heat up. Much like in 2017, the Democrats are kind of like, what do we do now? So now, a lot of people are pushing for the DNC to go in any direction they need. Since Jamie Harrison is stupid, he's out. So a lot of people have been thrown out and jumped in or whatever. Let's just talk a little bit about the declined choices. For now, we're going to go over all of the people who are potentially running and who are running, because there are a lot of people whose names have been thrown out there. So, the first round is people who have said no to the job. Stacey Abrams, Andy Beshear, Sherrod Brown, LaFonza Butler, Pete Buttigieg, Mitch Landrieu, and Phil Murphy. Why the fuck do they keep asking Mitch Landrieu what he wants? Who cares about Mitch Landrieu? Regardless. But, yeah, I mean, I'll just be real. A lot of these choices are stupid. Like, Mitch Landrieu shouldn't have been a contender. Phil Murphy, I don't really know why he would be named in the sphere. Pete Buttigieg, I can see why he would be named in the sphere. Most people forget that he actually did run for DNC chair first. Like, his first forte to national politics was actually trying to run for DNC chair. LaFonza Butler kind of makes sense. Sherrod Brown, maybe to an extent makes sense. Stacey Abrams, I'll admit, is kind of a stretch, but I think it kind of makes sense as well. I mean, of the ones who have said no, the only one that actually makes like legitimate sense to me would be Andy Beshear. Because you gotta remember, the dude literally ran on trans rights in Kentucky and won. You gotta think about that. There are three people whose names have been thrown out, but haven't really made any official statement. Stephanie Sherrock, the former president of Emily's List. Next, I guess the idea would be that they're gonna focus purely on the abortion issue, but no, you gotta run it more, guys. Sorry. Max Rose, former U.S. representative from New York District 11. Why him of all people? Like, if he was still in office, maybe, but he's not anymore. Why him? Beto O'Rourke? Why? Who cares? Why? There are four people who have publicly expressed interest but have not made any formal announcements yet. First, there's Michael Blake, former vice chair of the DNC. I don't know much about him. All I know is that he's kind of like just a generic lib. I don't really know. I don't really know much about him. I don't really know or care about him. Mallory McMullough, Majority Whip of the Michigan Senate. She got in the news very recently because the Republicans literally tried to accuse her of trying to sexualize kindergartners, which made her into a rising star in the Democratic Party because, obviously that's a very obvious thing that would make people be like, yeah, why would you randomly just accuse that? To make an accusation like that? The chair of the Wisconsin Democratic Party, Ben Wickler, has been floated and is expected to make a decision by December 11th. And despite the fact that he hasn't formally announced, he's already gotten some prominent endorsements, including but not limited to Jon Favreau of Pod Save America, Mark Buchan, Pramila Jayapal, and even Tammy Baldwin. Though granted, 2 of them are home state representation, but the biggest name that has been publicly expressed, I didn't realize how sad this is, they publicly expressed interest in this, and it's Rahm Emanuel, the USA ambassador to Japan and former mayor of Chicago. No. Just no. Absolute no. Without a shadow of a doubt, no. There are some people who've tried, like David Axelrod and Steve Israel, have tried to be like, yes, he should run. No. Everybody who thinks that Rahm Emanuel should run is... I'm watching too much Vosh. A certain word keeps popping in my vocabulary that I shouldn't be using. But Rahm is like a stupid choice. I don't get it. He is a loser. Guys, do you know why he's not Chicago mayor right now? Because he would have lost if he ran. He didn't retire because, I had served enough of my community and blah, blah, blah. No. He retired because he was going to lose. He would have lost to any of the other opponents. Remember, that's the same city that elected Lori Lightfoot as the next choice. And his most recent job is that he's an ambassador. Guys, why are we picking these random nobodies who have no observable, obvious reason to be the chair of a party? Why? If you really, literally, if you wanted to do the thing of we need to have a person who is good at winning, it's like, why not pick, why would any elected official who is not a person in a swing seat who is still winning be a choice? Why not? For example, Marcy Kaptur has been in a district that has been overwhelmingly anti-her for a while, and she keeps winning. It's like, she'd make more sense of a candidate than fucking Rahm Emanuel, who before being mayor of Chicago, a deep blue city, was the member of the House of Representatives in a deep blue district. It's like, wow, what a concept. However, there are 3 people who actually are currently seeking the Democratic Party's, the Democratic chair position. Political strategist Chuck Rocca, who was a Bernie Sanders affiliate. That's kind of cool, but he's just a random pundit. I don't really know much about him. Apparently he is also considered credited for being the reason why Ruben Gallego won. So it's like, I guess that gives him some credence. Current Social Security Administration Commissioner Martin O'Malley is being floated as a contender. He's announced that he wants to be DNC chair. There are a lot of people who are actually saying that, Martin O'Malley, be interested by Martin O'Malley. It's like, guys, I'm double checking right now, but Martin O'Malley floated his name as a potential DNC candidate the last time around, and he said no. I don't think he announced. Oh wait, a couple of these people are actually interesting. That of the last DNC, Steve Israel apparently was interested in running for a little bit. Even Gallego floated himself as a potential candidate in that election. But regardless, that doesn't matter. That's not this election. But again, why O'Malley? O'Malley was the guy who got third, who, for all intents and purposes, should have been the figurehead of the progressive movement in the United States, but lost to Bernie Sanders. But there is one piece of possible interestingness. The current chair of the Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party, the Democratic Farmer Labor Party chair, Ken Martin, is also running for the DNC chair position. All right, let's just check. Let's see his endorsements, whatever. Let's see. Dean Phillips. Okay, that's kind of cringe. Jane Cleave, the chair of the Nebraska Democratic Party. Okay, that's not necessarily the most, bad position, I guess. James Zogby, the president of the Arab American Institute and former DNC executive committee member. Yeah, okay, I guess that makes sense. Keith Ellison, Keith Ellison? That's it, I'm sold. Ken Martin for DNC chair 2025. Let's go, guys. Let's go, gang. Let's go. Guys, I'll be real. Literally the second Keith Ellison, Ken Martin announced his DNC chair position, and then almost immediately Keith Ellison announced that he was going to endorse him. And yes, I understand. Yes, he is endorsed by the same guy who he's also endorsed by Dean Phillips. So obviously it's a lot of like a regional thing. Because remember, Mark Buchan, he's endorsing fucking Ben Wilker, And the reason why, I'll explain this to you. The reason why Dean Phillips is endorsing Ken Martin is not just because he's like, oh, the DNC chair of his state, but also because apparently Ken Martin was one of the few DNC chairs that actually let the primary go on without any issue. He accused like, oh, Ben Wilker, he kicked me off the ballot. But Ken Martin at least let democracy play out. I think that's very important in the Democratic Party. Which I mean is like, fair, yes, I guess. But like the second Keith Ellison announced that he was endorsing him, I'm like, yeah, I'm just 100% on board. I didn't even have to look into any of his record or anything to even remotely be like, yes, I am on board. I understand, like, you know, the Democratic Farmer Labor Party is considered the most base Democratic Party of them all, and it's purely because of the fact that the Farmer Labor part of the party. But, like, yeah, again, Keith Ellison was proven right every day since 2015. Like, I literally convinced a person in my Discord server purely to support Ken Martin and, like loving. I even told them about, like, the idea of, like, Keith Ellison running for president in 2028, and they're like, I don't know about that. And then I literally just showed them one video clip, and they're just like, yes, I'm on board. Yes, I'm on board. Let's go, gang. And it was the clip. It's in 2015, during the Democratic primary, during the Republican primary, where Keith Ellison was invited on a news show, and he literally told the people on the show to be prepared for a potential Donald Trump administration. Like, be prepared. Like, Donald Trump got momentum. He, like, this, like, it's not crazy to think about the idea that he could be leading the Republican ticket. We got to prepare for that. We got to encourage people to vote. We got to make sure, because he will probably be leading the Republican ticket. And then he was laughed at by the host of the news show. Like, I know you're not serious. But he was right. He gave the message that the Democratic Party is trying to take now. He said this message in 2017 when he ran for DNC chair last time, and they laughed at his face then. He was proven right. The message they needed is the thing that they need right now. He warned that, like, the Trump Republicans would make the criminal justice system a lot more punitive, and they needed progressive prosecutors. He even decided to forego his own, like, House seat so that he could run in a position that could give him a prime opportunity to help people who need help, which led him to be the prosecutor in the Derek Chauvin case. A case that really, if we think about it, like, what would have happened if Keith Ellison wasn't the Attorney General of Minnesota during that time period? Like, not even if it was just a Republican, like, what if it was, like, literally just any, like, lib type person there? Would it have gone that far? And stuff like that is also why I think Keith Ellison is the dark horse for the next election, if we're actually being serious. I mean, honestly, if I had the ability, I would start the movement right now to start bringing whispers to be like Keith Ellison 2028. But I know that's not really important to discuss really right now. It's more important to discuss things like the DNC chair election, or it's more important to discuss things like that. I know there's some people who probably are watching this and they're like, oh yeah, Ben Wickler's kind of cool too. I don't know anything about Ben Wickler. I didn't know anything about Ken Martin until recently, but I'll be real again. Keith Ellison says it's Martin time, so it's Martin time. And I know that Wickler might be kind of cool, but also there's another thing you need to take into factor. Also, other people are like, but Chuck Rocha's kind of cool. It's like, yeah, guys, but listen. Ken Martin already has the support of 100 DNC members. Because gotta remember, DNC chair election, they need DNC members to pick them. So we need to make sure that everybody who is, like, affiliated with the Democratic Party or knows how to get in contact with their DNC members to contact them. Like, I mean, I would put a link to, like, how to contact my DNC members, but I don't know if you guys live in my state, because I don't want to make people in the states who are not, I don't want to, you know what I mean? Like, do it, like, find the way to contact your DNC members in your state, and then send them an email talking about Ken Martin. Now, I'm going to tell you this point, because that's one of the first things I did. The first thing I did was I found the way to contact my DNC members, and then, like, sent a letter to all of them, sent an email to all of them to bring to attention the ability to contact and, like, the ability to support Ken Martin. I don't know if they've already announced their support for Ken Martin. They might have. I don't know. Regardless, I mean, I would encourage you guys to find, like, their social media presence, see if they've already expressed support for Ken Martin, so you can check them off the list, because they don't really say the DNC members who have already supported them. I would really like to see, like, an actual, actual endorsement list or something like that. But regardless, again, like, we need to bring to attention this stuff. We need to talk about this. I wanted to, like, do a template so that most people could do it, like, whatever, but I don't want them to think it's spam or anything. I want you guys to independently come to your own way of writing things to do this. But I will read you the way that I sent my letters to my DNC members, just to see. This gives you a kind of an idea of what you can do, because you got to do two things. One, you got to bring heavy criticism of the Democratic Party, but two, and this is going to be the hard part, you also kind of got to suck them off, or at the very least, a little bit of a hand job. You'll see what I mean when I get into the letter. All right. So here's what I wrote to the DNC members of North Carolina. Hello there, state representatives of the Democratic National Committee. We are all reeling over the recent electoral loss to Donald Trump, and are facing a similar situation that the party felt in 2016. In the wake of the loss, we are seeing some self-reflection about what the Democratic Party should and should not be doing moving forward. While the specifics vary from person to person, the one consistency in the analysis is that the Democratic Party has turned its back on a lot of people. It started off with just the white working class, now it has expanded to working class Latinos and African Americans who are also shifting away from the party. Unfortunately, the truth of the matter is there is a viewpoint that the Democratic Party is the party of coastal elite limousine liberals, even as the Biden-Harris administration offered certain plans, they unfortunately were not enough to counter the narrative. A narrative that I know firsthand permeates with the North Carolina Democratic Party, hence the change in leadership with Anderson Clayton, which has led to innumerable benefits down the ballot. And it is for that reason that Ken Martin is the best choice for the chair of the Democratic National Committee. Ken represents an area that perfectly exemplifies this attitude, the Midwest, which, due to certain mishandlings of the Democratic Party prior, has shifted towards Trump's rhetoric, with the exception of his home state, which has actually shifted further blue in his tenure as chair of the Democratic Farmer Labor Party. Trump lost by 1 point in 2016, then 7 points in 2020. He was also able to protect many down-the-ballot candidates in the close races during his tenure, with the most notable accomplishment being the election of Tim Walz, who, despite having a simple one-seat majority in the state Senate, was able to codify abortion into law, pushed $2.6 billion infrastructure, pushed for the states to be carbon-free by 2040, implemented free school lunches for all students. The reason the Democratic Party has been struggling is because they have not been able to tap into that type of rhetoric nationwide. If the Democratic Party can, I do not think the GOP will be able to counteract that. The voters will see Trump has been selling them snake oil. It was the choice that the DNC was given in 2017, but they chose status quo and a return to normalcy. To quote a great woman, we are not going back. That last part was really, really hard to write, but you understand what you gotta do, guys. You gotta say things that make them go, yeah, like, you gotta tap their, you gotta pat them on the back and be like, yeah, you guys are doing good, but you also gotta, like, you gotta make sure that they get the message. Because this is the fact. A lot of Democrats, they actually understand this. They understand they need new messaging. They understand they need this. The average Dem voter, which DNC committee members do typically kind of are, like, at least at first, they are kind of normal run-of-the-mill people. But you gotta understand, like, liberals don't want to be told immediately, like, oh, you're wrong, stupid, ugly, and fat. You're wrong and gay and stuff. They don't want to be called that. They don't want to be insulted. You need to coddle them. Guys. You gotta coddle these guys. You have to coddle these guys. Like, I mean, normally I wouldn't say to coddle the liberals, but this time you need to coddle the liberals. At least until Ken Martin gets into the DNC chair position. But there's one more thing that I should have said. Like, I should have said one more thing, because Ken Martin has actually also used this to his advantage when he is trying to get the DNC members to support him. And that's the fact that he brought up this fact. And I should have brought this fact up, but I didn't. And it's the fact that he's like, under my administration, my party has been winning statewide. And it's like, yeah, use that. It's like, guys, his party has been not only successful, but actually successful. Not just successful in like the, oh, we managed to make it so that it's blue, but also he's been managed to actually win down the ballot races and also actually implement policies that will be good, that will hopefully continue the Democratic Farmer Labor Party's platform. So yeah, Ken Martin for DNC chair 2025. Let's go, gang. If the Democrats do not choose him, they are fucked. They are fucked, and we are fucked because of them. But anyways, with that out of the way, let's move on to the main topic of this episode, tariffs. They've been making the news a lot recently, haven't they? With Trump making tariffs one of the cornerstones of his economic agenda. This isn't really new if you've been paying attention. Trump has been more of a tariff guy since he did run on it in 2016, and we have had 4 years of the guy where tariffs did play a role in his administration. And if you want to go further, Donald Trump's political career did begin under a political party created by a guy who cornerstoned the idea of tariffs, the Reform Party created by Ross Perot. But with the prospect of Trump's incoming administration, lately, many have now begun to really harsh towards tariffs. Very recently we've been seeing a lot of people just going like one of the main criticisms nowadays for especially to mock Trump supporters is to just say tariffs and just mock them for haha, tariffs. And I'm seeing this from a lot of people haha, tariffs, haha, tariffs, haha, tariffs. And a lot of them are actually even left-wing creators, which kind of perplexed me for a little bit because I guess we'll get into that when we get into the episode. Let's just hopefully this episode will do a little bit to clear up any misinformation about tariffs. Hopefully. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll be stupid. I don't know. First, let's answer this question. What the fuck is a tariff? Well, a protective tariff is a tax imposed by the government of a nation on imports of goods into said nation. It is the most common way to implement a protectionist trade policy. Why would the government do that, you may ask? Well, the most common reason is to incentivize people to buy goods that are made domestically, as opposed to foreign-made goods. As the name suggests, to protect industries from outside competitors. There is an image on Google that gives a very basic definition of a tariff. You have two countries. If a towel in country A costs $12 and a towel in country B costs $10, in order to level the playing field, you might add a 20% tariff, which raises the price of it to $12, so there is no financial incentive to buy the foreign-made product. Why is the foreign-made product cheaper? Well, for a lot of reasons. The cost of labor in the nation is way lower. Things like minimum wage laws and all those other things that make it lower or higher. Economic or environmental regulations, a ton of things. But broadly, a product that is made domestically will cost more than a product that is made foreign, because that's what the capitalist gods say. Now, the first thing you might be wondering, that a lot of people who might not know a lot about tariffs is well, is it a right-wing issue or is it a left-wing issue? What is it? Is it a good, you're sitting there and you're just is it a good thing or a bad thing? Is it left or right? It's neither. It's an issue that both left-wingers and right-wingers have advocated for in the past, present, and future. In fact, some people is actually really surprising to see that they are pro or anti-tariff, honestly. When you do your research into US politics especially, you'll be wait, this person's anti-tariff or this person's pro-tariff? What? For real, I was actually kind of surprised when I had to get reminded again, yeah, William McKinley was pro-tariffs. It's it really? Because he just strikes me as a sort of free trade president. He just kind of strikes me that way. And it's also kind of weird to hear about the fact that Robert M. La Follette is a huge opponent of tariffs, even though it doesn't even make sense in the sort of context of the political scene at the time. Because back in the day, tariffs were also kind of seen as more of a regional issue. Typically in U.S. history, the South, who based most of their economy on agriculture and exporting goods, usually meant that they were opposed to tariffs. They benefited from a free trade system. Meanwhile, in the North, which was more of a textile and mill-based business, they were more pro-tariff because we don't want foreign-made textiles to come in so that they make the market so that it's pro them. Which is why Henry Clay was kind of seen a figurehead of tariffs. Clearly, he's considered a right-wing figure broadly to an extent, even though a lot of his positions are, again, it's just also the changing philosophies of the United States, especially considering the United States really hasn't had a huge socialist wing. U.S. politics is basically right-wing capitalist versus right-wing capitalist. But our choices back in the day were slave-based economy or economy based on keeping foreign businesses out. Man, this probably isn't right, but what if the South was really anti-tariff because they were afraid that there was going to be a tariff on slaves? And, of course, one of the loudest pro-tariff politicians in the United States, especially in the modern day, is Ross Perot, a billionaire who was basically wrong on almost every other issue with the exception of tariffs. Like, I mean, without giving too much away, but like, Ross Perot called out a specific bill that was happening during his presidential election, and he said, this is a bad idea, guys. If this bill gets enacted, you're going to hear a huge sucking sound. And sure enough, what ended up happening is that there was a huge sucking sound. And yeah, Ross Perot was proven right. Like, I mean, there's a reason why I put him on the thumbnail that says, I'm 100% fucking right. I was 100% right, because I gotta be real, he was. Guys, he was. As much as it might pain you to be like, yeah, Ross Perot, billionaire, he was right, dude. He was fucking right. I guarantee you, if Ross Perot won the election, Trump wouldn't be in office right now, because there wouldn't be a problem that he would have ran on. But you see, here's one big thing about like this whole like argument about like tariff versus free trade. Like, even though we do kind of understand that there are ideologues on both sides, and there are even some administrations that we might consider ideologues on both sides of these issues, there really in U.S. history, there was never been a president that was like, I am 100% pro-tariff, or one president that's like, I am 100% anti-tariff. Like, I mean, Thomas Jefferson was a huge anti-tariff guy. Like, he's like, I fucking hate tariffs. But then when he got into office, he looked at tariffs and he's like, no, hold on, guys. Wait, guys, I'm sorry. I can't take away these tariffs, guys. I can take away some of them, or I can lower the cost of these tariffs, but like, I can't just do away with tariffs. Same thing happened with Andrew Jackson. He came in and he, as vice president, was like, yeah, we're going to go in there and we're going to fucking destroy all the tariffs. And then Andrew Jackson was like, okay, well, I'm not going to destroy all of them. Are you fucking stupid? Are you insane? I'm not going to destroy every single tariff. That's stupid. And he's like, you ran on no tariffs. Reagan and Bush and even Clinton were like very huge like anti-tariff and like pro-free trade, but they implemented a tariff here and there, you know. They weren't like tariff crazy, like tariff, like, but they had like a tariff here and there. But they were a lot more anti-tariff than before. Like, they were more like, let's get rid of this tariff. They were like more very mad about it. And that, of course, has led to a little bit of a counteractive. Because, like, when the neoliberals came in the fray, they were the new guys. Like, oh, yeah, people ran on these tariff things. Let's get rid of these tariffs. And now that they're the new hip thing, there's a new wave of the tariff people that are like, hold on, we got to put those tariffs back where they belong. But let's just actually analyze this just purely on both sides of the aisle. First, let's answer the question, why would somebody oppose tariffs? Now, first, let's just acknowledge the capitalist wet dream of tariffs, like the capitalist, like neoliberal free trade, globalist, like idea of like, oh, the US market opens to other nations, they will start to reap the benefits from us, our wealth will start trickling down towards them, blah, 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 nah, like all that stuff. That's just nonsense. I only brought it up just so I could debunk it later, but regardless, let's take a look at a more salient reason why someone would oppose tariffs. Because this is one thing I've explained what a tariff is, but like, let's just explain it. Let's just say what it is. A tariff is a tax on goods. We can dance around it all we want, but yes, tariffs are a tax on goods. But it's a tax on the corporations that are doing the bad things, right? Well, yes, but as is typical with any sort of economic anything in capitalism, the corporation's going to find a way for you to pay for it. There's some people that are going to get a little mad about me saying, like, oh, wait, what do you mean yes, but? Like, that are just going to find, like, no, it's not yes, but, like, guys, like, there are a lot of business owners that have been warning about tariff increases. The ones who seem to have actually reluctant to do this are small business owners who, through the way of the world economy, rely purely on foreign like aid to make a lot of their products. An example of which is like, it's very common for people to like use like a website that's like, oh, it just makes like a thing in China and it just sends it over to like you. So like, I don't want to like I don't want to like make like, I want to make a t-shirt, but I can't sell a t-shirt in America because I don't really know like an American like person to make the t-shirt. So what I'm going to do is it's just easier to do this online, especially on an online business. It's easier for me to just do it this way, where like this like guy in Hong Kong makes it and then sends it to the person that I'm like making the product for. A lot of like indie businesses, especially like artist related businesses and stuff like that, do that all the time. And I remember I saw something that said like, oh, we lost this much money because of tariffs that this country put on us. So technically, the harm does get back to the country and corporations to some capacity, But the insinuation that the consumer would not face any issues at all is just unfounded. Like, again, in the most basic sense, this is how a tariff works. You have two products sold in the United States. One is domestic, one is foreign. Under free trade, they are both whatever price the company says they are. Typically, the foreign-made product is cheaper because various labor laws. Maybe the minimum wage is lower, maybe they don't have free insurance, maybe they don't have good unions, maybe they have more of a quantity base of goods regardless of whatever. Maybe it's quantity versus quality, regardless, whatever, it doesn't matter. Domestic products are typically more expensive than foreign-made ones. Under protectionism, the foreign product has a price increase so that you are inclined to buy domestic. Think of it as a preemptive sales tax, which is exactly what Kamala ran on. It's a Trump sales tax. That's what she said during the administration, during the campaign. And due to the ideas of capitalism, the idea would be, so maybe, hypothetically, the domestic company might lower the product's price so that it's actually more competitive than whatever. It's not necessary in that idea. They just be it would raise the price of the foreign-made good. So either way, even if they don't lower the price of the domestic product is still lower. But they do have the idea in their head, maybe they would still incentivize it by lowering the prices. Much in the same way, the idea of capitalism says that in order for companies to compete with each other, they'll instinctively think, what I need to do is lower the prices so that everyone can buy my product. That's how it's quote-unquote supposed to work. But if you know a thing or two about capitalism, you know that companies don't act like that and will raise and lower the prices whenever the fuck they want. And unless they are explicitly forbidden from raising prices, they can raise it or lower it regardless of the tariff price. So a big worry is that maybe, let's say the tariff price is linked so that it's $12 or whatever. Then the American towel company goes, what if I make it $11? Hey, it's still under the tariff price. It's still under the tariff price, so people will still buy my product, but they also get to raise their prices as long as it matches underneath the tariff price. Maybe they go even further, $11.50. And that's where one of the more legitimate concerns of tariffs come in, where it's we're afraid that ultimately at the end of the day, the consumer is the one that's going to get fucked. And ultimately, of all the people in this situation in regards to tariffs, the companies or whatever, the consumer is the only one that people should really care about. Well, that and the worker that's getting exploited by the companies as well. But regardless, those are the only two people you should probably care about in this situation. That's the reason why Robert M. La Follette opposed tariffs, because he viewed that possibly this would just lead to higher prices of a ton of goods. But then that begs the question, why would someone then support tariffs? Protecting domestic businesses primarily. The basic example we know of in the modern day context is the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA, a trade deal that removed all tariffs between the United States, Mexico, and Canada to encourage trade between these three nations, with the goal being on paper to simply help companies in all three nations thrive and hopefully build each other up, thinking that that's what would happen. Again, on paper, that's what it was supposed to do. But American companies discovered an interesting loophole. During the 80s and 70s, Mexican products would have to be sold with this tariff on it. But now these Mexican products don't have any tariff on it. Man, those companies are really lucky. They get to sell all these they get to go in this country and be able to do all this stuff, and they're able to do blah, blah, blah. Wait a second. We have to pay our workers this much money, and it only costs us this much money to sell the product. Wait, that's crazy. We don't get that much money, but the people who are running this Mexican company, they're getting a lot more money. They don't have to pay people less, and they don't even get to pay a tariff no more. Wait, what if we close down the factory here and open up shop in Mexico? So that way we have to pay the workers less, and there's no problem with us importing a product in. We don't have to pay that tariff in no more. Cha-ching! But this actually has mutual benefits for the US, Mexico, and Canada. No. The international 1% benefits. The international 99% does not benefit. The business owners who outsource their companies benefit from this. The politicians who get bribed to do these kinds of laws benefit from this. But the factory workers who got fired don't fucking benefit from this. And despite what some people might think happened, Mexico didn't benefit from this either. Like there are a lot of people really use this to be like most people know nobody was really doing this to have benefit of quote unquote Canada. Nobody was doing it for their benefit. This was clearly just a ploy to get like the quote unquote benefit of Mexico. With the idea being, with the US market entering Mexico, all of a sudden you guys are gonna start benefiting really well. Mexico's gonna be lifted out of poverty. But no, they didn't benefit from this at all. What happened is that natural resources in Mexico just started getting funneled away from Mexico into America. All the products that were being made in Mexico were now all of a sudden starting to come to America, not leaving any for Mexico. Mexican corn farmers literally got super fucked because it became cheaper to import corn from the United States rather than growing corn domestically, which is what Mexican economy was based on. Back in the day, Mexico literally had cheap corn tortillas that were sold in government-run facilities. But now it was cheaper for Mexico to import that, as long as alongside other foods in America, and import them here in Mexico to be sold for relatively cheap, because foreign-made products are again cheaper than domestic products, which naturally led to a lot of other problems. The Mexican obesity crisis. Remember, Mexico had a huge obesity crisis that they've been trying to crack down on for a while, and that started a lot of it. Hold on, let me pull up the numbers. Yeah, while the line is steady, it does get noticeably more big, the obesity rate in Mexico, after 1994, when NAFTA became implemented, which is what Claudia Sheinbaum nowadays is actually running on and trying to explain and try to fix, because it's cheaper now in Mexico to buy a bag of corn chips from a store rather than buying a corn tortilla. And another issue is that it would ruin domestic laws as well. Like, for example, Mexico had a rule in the Constitution, Article 27, which barred indigenous land from privatization. Alright? Based. But that was only for domestic companies. Domestic companies were the only ones who had to follow that rule. Foreign companies don't have to follow that rule. So what would happen when they would start getting into the country and be like, hey, let's open up factories down here? What will happen to them? Well, there were some indigenous people that were like, we're not waiting to fucking find out, and led into a revolutionary left-wing group called the Zapatistas. They were supposed to benefit from this. We were supposed to lift Mexico out of poverty with this massive thing. We're going to help Mexico. I guarantee you that Bill Clinton probably said, exactly, we're going to help Mexico be lifted out of poverty, or something along those lines. But that's not true at all. A study by the Journal of Regional Research shows that the immediate implementation of NAFTA, wages in Mexico went down and did not increase until 2019, when AMLO literally just changed the minimum wage entirely. It's a similar thing that I've been seeing with a lot of people, after NAFTA, wages in America went up exponentially. Or prices went down, or it's that's not, no, you can't really say that this is the pure reason why, when there are a ton of other factors that have been going on. And one big thing that clearly shows this is wrong is because of the fact that the minimum wage is set by the states. The states explicitly set the wage. The wage is not tied to inflation. It is not tied to the benefit of wealth. It's not tied to anything of the sort. It's not tied to the amount of labor you do. It's not tied to anything. It's tied to whatever the boss man says you're worth, or what the government forces the people in the state to say you're worth. The companies didn't magically decide, now that we're getting all this money in, we're going to start giving you higher wages. No. They will cheap you out of all of your wages if they could. Notice, again, the federal minimum wage is low, and it's up to individual states to now set the prices of their own individual wages. The federal minimum wage is the small amount, the smallest amount of minimum wage on the state maps is the federal minimum wage. And they get away with making that the wage that you have to work with. The only thing that is exported and is done, and it's kind of like a thing that America kind of slowly, slightly hints at, but think about it. One of the things that they want to do with the NAFTA and all these other free trade agreements is they want to export imperialism. They want to exert their global hegemony with their economics. They already did it with Mexico. They're exporting their obesity rates, but they're removing a lot of the Mexican identity with this sort of foreign trade. A lot of Mexicans are very much going to just buy American-made products. And similar thing all across the world, where it's oh yeah, they're just going to buy American-made products because American-made products are going to be cheaper in their home countries rather than buying their own domestic products, thereby making it so that America starts globalizing them. And if they want to keep those benefits, want to keep that like cheap food, if they want to keep the so-called like economic benefits, well, then they got to start doing a lot more things for the United States. They got to start implementing policies that are beneficial to the United States. They got to start doing all this stuff for the United States. That's one big problem I see with like right-wingers who try to like shit on like other countries with tariffs. Like, oh, they're fucking us over. The other countries are not fucking us over. We're mutually fucking each other. We're getting fucked over by the rich elite. The capitalist 1% bourgeois. They're the ones who are fucking us over. Random, like Pablo from Mexico is not benefiting from this no more than fucking like Jerome who works in a factory. Neither of these guys are benefiting. But Francisco the billionaire in Mexico, he's benefiting. And Roderick, the billionaire in America, he's benefiting from this. Neither of them are, like those, like the rich people are benefiting. Poor people are not benefiting. And let me address one big thing, because this is one thing that I've actually kind of started noticing, especially with this recent thing, that really does make me go like, guys, I think we're starting to like focus on the wrong problem here, guys. Because again, like one of the first things they'll do is tariffs are going to do this thing, tariffs are going to do this thing, and all these companies are like being like, oh yeah, tariffs. Like I'm seeing this is like a news thing I've seen like multiple times. It's like, big company says that we got to prepare for tariffs, or big company says that we are preparing for tariffs. Like literally, it's like literally there's one. I remember like if I've seen this multiple times, or like if I've seen this once, but like there's literally one article that was literally like companies are already starting to raise prices in preparation of Trump's tariffs. Wait, hold on. Say that again. Companies are already starting to raise prices to prepare for tariffs. Let's hear that one more time, but really slow. Companies are already starting to raise prices to prepare for tariffs. If this is just a natural thing that happens with tariffs, why would the company start raising prices now before the tariffs are even implemented? Would this not just be a natural product of the tariffs being implemented? It's almost as if the companies just really want to find an excuse to price gouge their customers. So as you can probably tell, I'm broadly more on the side of tariffs. Like, I mean, just it seems like a lot more like it makes sense to be pro-tariff than anti-tariff. Neoliberal globalization has led to a lot of bad things in the world scene, and unfortunately, we gotta do something to prevent it. And as far as I can tell, this is really the only way to prevent it. At least in the short term, until we officially abolish capitalism. Be that as it may, let's acknowledge one big thing. Trump's tariffs suck. Like, 100%. Donald Trump's tariffs suck. Like, I'm not being like, oh, well, maybe there's going to be some good elements of this. No. Donald Trump's tariffs are terrible, and they will not do any good. And then give you some reasons as to why that is. First, the amount. Trump has set a ton of different tariff amounts that do not fill me with any hope. He wants to implement a 20% broad tariff. He wants to implement a 60% to 100% tariff on Chinese products, and a 200% tariff on Mexican products. It starts off like, I mean, literally, 20% tariff, that sounds reasonable. And then it just starts going off the deep end. Literally, like, I heard him literally go, like, I want to implement it. Like, literally, it was literally the 100 or 200% tariff number that I was like, are you serious? Like, that was the number that made me just go, okay, well, yeah, what? And those numbers in particular are going to lead to very ridiculous outcomes. Let's use the towel example again. Now, all foreign towels are $12. Towels made from China can range from $16 to $20, and towels from Mexico are now $30. That is insane just to think about. Just think about that. $30 towel? That's insane. But also, here's a little bit of a kicker. I decided to do some research into some tariffs that the United States had done before. The good tariffs, the bad tariffs, whatever. And there's one tariff in particular that is very, very interesting. The tariff of 1828, which raised the tariff rates of the United States to around 60%. Now, remember, that is what Donald Trump has proposed as a tariff on Chinese products. The products that a lot of companies use, by the way. Just keep that in mind. There's another thing that's a big thing. Keep that in mind. A lot of stuff that we buy is made in China, so a lot of those products are going to see a 60 to 100% price increase. Think about that, guys. And the tariff of 1828, the 60% tariff, remember, it was made with the specific intention to fail. Like, they specifically wrote it, specifically to fail, so that way they could ruin the idea of tariffs in the United States. But it passed, and it led to the Southern economy to basically crash, to destroy it. So bad, like, it was so bad, they literally just like, we want to make it so that the South does not have to rely on these tariffs anymore. Which led to the nullification crisis, which made the United States enter the Civil War. The tariff in question is now literally called the Tariff of Abominations. And just broadly, a 100%, 200% tariff makes literally no sense. 2, the way Trump wants to do tariffs is stupid. Listen to what I say again. A 20% tariff broadly, 60 to 100% on Chinese products, 200% on Mexican products. These tariffs are made to target the other nations broadly. Like, for example, like, it's not this is how tariffs are supposed to work. You do like a 10% tariff on steel. You target a specific industry that is like, you need to have it, like, that's how it works. Like, we need to prioritize American-made steel, so we're gonna have it so that there's a 10% on foreign-made steel. And steel is a lot more focused on, like, the companies in general, so it's like, yeah, they get the more of the brunt of this and not, like, the American consumers. That way you can get the benefits of the tariff rather than the problems of it, in theory. Like, but it's not that. Donald Trump is like, I want to do this tariff on the entirety of the goods made in this country. Not a specific industry in this country, but just broadly, like, tariffs broadly on this country. Because he wants to hurt China, hurt Mexico. That's what he wants to do. He's not doing it to help American industries. He's doing it to attack other nations. It's a similar thing to sanctions in regards. For example, like, you know, America's like, we're going to put sanctions on blank or blank or blank. And it's like, guys, do you really think that Maduro got hurt by the Venezuelan sanctions? Or Daniel Ortega got hurt when we sanctioned Nicaragua? Or Vladimir Putin when we sanctioned Russia? No. They might have gotten hurt a little bit, but broadly, the entirety of the nations got hurt. And that's the same thing that's going to happen with the tariffs. Like, it's like, oh, we think that we're going to hurt these guys. These guys are going to get fucked. But then it turns out, no, we're actually going to get fucked. Whoops. Again, you got to do a specific targeted tariff on a specific industry that's hurting. Like, it doesn't make any sense to do, like, a broad tariff. Like, like, there's one, like, just think of it like this. I'm trying to think of, like, a specific thing that, is specific to China. I don't remember. Like, let's say America had like a 100% tariff on the bamboo industry, and it's like, I don't recall America really having a bamboo industry at all. What benefit are we getting? We're just raising the price of bamboo imported into the United States just to serve as a fuck you to China. Like, fuck you, China. It's like, that's not really gonna do anything that's beneficial. But if it's like, oh, the Chinese industry is stealing away this specific industry of, like, wood. Like, there's a wood industry, and we put a tariff on Chinese wood, a 20% tariff on Chinese wood, and it's like, yeah, okay, there's benefits from that, but there is no benefit from, like, doing, like, a tariff, like, oh, let's attack China, or, like, let's attack every single industry coming from China. And 3, and this is the big one, that's all he wants to do. His entire solution to the problem is tariffs. Like, if that's your only solution, you're stupid. Like, genuinely, if you were like, oh, the only way we can fix the problem of the United States, like, industry is tariffs, that's stupid. I will say, like, I think Ross Perot kind of had that analysis as well. Like, if that is your only solution, you're wrong. And the only reason why you think that that's the solution is because you're a capitalist, and capitalism is the flaw. Capitalism is the flaw. It is not whether or not it's a free trade or a fair trade capitalism. Inevitably, there's still going to be a problem with capitalism. But ultimately, a fair trade, protectionist trade policy is better than it's literally lesser of two evils, essentially. Like I said before, a tariff is just a tax on imported goods. So unless you were to implement policies that would directly protect consumers, then you're just right back to square one. Like, quite literally, anything. Price controls to prevent private enterprises from price gouging. introducing a government-made product that would lower the prices than private goods, minimum wage increase, universal basic income, literally anything that would directly help consumers even if prices go up. Literally anything. But no, literally, Trump just wants to do like 1, tariff, 2, tariff, 3, tariff. Because he has nothing. He is a bitch to the capitalist class. He is a whore to the capitalist class. That is what he is. And all of you people that are like, oh, we're so anti-establishment, we're voting for Trump. No. He's just going to give you back to square one. That is what he's going to do. He's bringing you back to the establishment of yesteryear. Just not the establishment of this year. And he's only doing it for 2 ulterior motives. Like, he just wants to do the tariff for 2 ulterior motives. 1, the nationalistic fervor. Buy American, buy American, buy American. Like, that's his nationalistic fervor or whatever. And also, the secret one, the secret hidden motive that he's been secretly having for this whole time. Except it's not so secret because it's actually literally explicitly part of his plan. He wants to replace the income tax with it. Literally, he wants to replace a tax on the rich with a tax on the poor. Because ultimately, that's what one of the people, that's why, again, Kamala said this. Trump wants to run on a tax for the poor. That's what his tariff plan would ultimately be, just a tax on the poor. And I'm against a tax on the poor. Like, literally, I'm against all the tax on the poor. I'm against a, like, what's it called? Like, they call it what's it called? They call it, like, I mean, I know, like, there's, like, a specific one, but, like, I'm talking about, like, the more broad one, like a sin tax or whatever. Like, there's, like, a thing called the sin tax, which is, like, you, like, tax, like, alcohol, you tax cigarettes, you tax drugs, you tax those kind of things. Like, oh, these are the illicit substances, these are the bad substances. We need to control it so that poor people can't have it. And also, like, Trump has openly, like, literally, I think this is where his, like, connection with Project 2025 will be. Because Project 2025 wants to get rid of the income tax and replace it with a national sales tax. And the tariff would ultimately be a national sales tax. So I think what he's trying to do is that he's trying to merge his 2 goals and trying to make it so that the tariff is the national sales tax rather than a national sales tax in general. Because that's literally what right-wingers want. They want a national sales tax. Every single right-wing person literally is like, we need to get rid of the income tax. And it's like, well, then how are you going to pay for the revenue? It's like, well, the secret hidden part is that they want to do a national sales tax. But of course, they're not going to run on that, because why would they run on that? They just want to run on, oh, trans people, icky, gross. Now, I should keep this in mind. I mean, like, I guess I'll just say this, but, like, I'm not necessarily, quote-unquote, loyal to tariffs. Like I said, anybody who thinks that tariffs are, like, the end-all, be-all strategy is stupid. Much like how everyone who thinks that free trade will save the day is stupid. I am loyal to helping the poor in every nation be liberated from capitalism. A tariff is not going to fix that. Tariffs are just a tool that can be used to help build up the American economy and to counteract the negative effects of neoliberalism and capitalism. Like, if someone were able to come to me and offer me an alternative to protectionism that would counteract all the negative things that come from neoliberal capitalism and free trade globalism, that kind of stuff, and wouldn't increase everything. It's like, here's the plan that will, like, fix all these problems, fix the outsourcing, fix, like, the pillaging and the imperialism of, like, the Latin America and the global South, fix all that stuff without raising tariffs. I'm all ears, guys. Give me those ideas if you have them. But ultimately, I haven't seen them. Like, I mean, I've heard of things like alter globalization, which do, like, kind of try to do that, but I haven't seen much about alter globalization as, like, an actual concept that it can be put on paper. Just more like well, here's, like, the general idea of it. But ultimately, that isn't really what I'm seeing. Ultimately, the 2 choices are protectionism or free trade. And tariffs are part of protectionism. You can't take it out. Worst case scenario is they're a necessary evil, but I don't see them as such. If implemented properly, they can actually be beneficial. Like, I mean, I know this is like a hypothetical la-la land, but let's play devil's advocate and let's just say this, okay? What if we had a system where there was a protectionist trade policy that prevented overseas, like, shipping? We had a federal minimum wage that was like a living wage and / or universal basic income, or literally anything that could help implement to make sure that prices don't go out of control, like a price control of any sort. We could do anything of that sort to kind of keep things on the balance. We can't. Like, who says we can't? There are a lot of people that are like, well, you can't do that. Why not? Why not? Why can't we do that? Our currency's all made up anyways. What's the matter? What's the point? Quite genuinely, if we were to have that, I think it would be a better world. But maybe I'm wrong. I'm willing to be proven wrong. But I'm just saying, your free trade hasn't been working out thus far, so clearly you need something else. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the bell to notify when the future video mine comes out. And if you're interested in more content from me, consider supporting me on Patreon.